Good evening. I firstly thought it would be easy to come and speak, not only that I've been fasting for the last 18 hours or so, but when I listened to the speakers, I actually got nervous because it was exceptionally well presented in Patrick and the two young ladies and the gentleman with the photographers. So amazing work. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I will try to speak slow because I speak very fast. English is my fifth language. I struggle. I'm still learning. I'm getting there. I will tell you a summary of The Lightless Sky, which you will get in your gift bags, which I've been signing since I arrived for the last hour or so. I was just talking to someone. There was a time people used to say to me, Gulwali, can we have your autographs? I used to take it as a joke. And I was kind of serious. I've been traveling up and down the country, been going to Europe, to the States, signing copies of the book, which is kind of unreal. Sometimes I feel to myself, is it really a dream? But anyhow, to keep it short. I was born in Afghanistan in the time when the Taliban government took over. It was a time, according to my family, my father, who was a local doctor in eastern Afghanistan, in a Nangarhar province. He said Afghanistan was a civil war. After the Russian has left, the country was in turmoil in the sense that, not maybe to the same extent as Syria, but every province, every district, every village had its own warlords and its own corrupt politicians. So the country was, everything was going crazy. And there were over 2 million deaths since the Russian troops pulled out after the 8 years invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, where millions of Afghans lost their lives. But the Taliban came in, in the Western world, there's a very kind of biased, or they're a very narrow perspective of them. I'm not in no way defending them, in no way their spokesperson, but in my book I have put the record straight in a sense of what it meant for ordinary people, especially of those who lived through the civil war. So according to my family, there were people who brought stability in peace, even though with an iron stick, even though with a very harsh punishment. Anyhow, I grew up in the mountains of Afghanistan with my grandparents as a shepherd. So from age 3 to age 7, I was living with them. In winter, we will go to warmest part of Afghanistan, warm parts of the region, and in summer, we will stay in the mountains. And then, even though at this young age, I had to develop this beautiful relationship with the animals, sheep, and other animals we had, and learned a great deal of wisdom in things that we take for granted in the West, things like manners, respect, accountability, responsibility from my grandparents. Unfortunately, when I turned around 7, my family were not happy that my grandparents' old age were living in the mountains because we were known as the doctor family. So like the dad of Maya, so it was like my granddad, people will call him the father of the doctor. And people wouldn't call me Gulwali, people would call me the son of the doctor. So my family thought it was disrespectful for my grandparents to be in the mountains. So they sell all our sheep and send us back to the family home, which I was not very happy about. I was very displeased about. Somehow I was forced to start school and went to school in 2000. After a year or so, not only did I struggle in school in the beginning to fit in, from a free boy in the mountains running up to sheep, and been with my little dog and had a beautiful life with peace and tranquility. Here I was in school trying to work and manage and get used to a different kind of life. But then if things wasn't getting worse, the war started. The US invasion with the other 49 countries invaded Afghanistan in 2001. And again, if things wasn't getting worse, one of my uncle was a commander in the Taliban, one of my youngest uncle. And because of his involvement, when the Taliban government collapsed, it made it really hard for us to live a normal life, to be, to have the same role that we had in society. My grandma was a midwife. I used to go with her to people's houses when they were giving birth. So as a child, I remember women giving birth and seeing them giving birth, which was not a pleasant experience, but it was. I loved my grandma. Unfortunately, a few years ago, she passed away. And that's one of the sacrifices being a refugee, is that we make a lot of sacrifices. One is that you miss special occasions, special moments, So my grandma was the most beloved to me. Actually, my book starts with her. So I used to go with her to people's houses, holding her hands because she was an old lady. Because in our district, there was no hospital. So either people would come to our house because we were the doctor family, or my grandma was not even educated. She didn't know nothing about in terms of education and literacy. But her hand was so blessed. Every time she went to a family, the baby would be born. And because the nearest city to our district was Jalalabad, which was about 3 hours drive. So either the woman or child would die because of the road and the situation that they were. So yeah, I had beautiful memories with my grandma in growing up as a child there. But then the war has changed everything, and then my home became a war zone. Literally, my home became a war zone. And I used to go with my mother and the women and the children to bunkers to hide from bombs and from rocket attacks. We used to see the airplanes in the sky literally 24/7 bombing. Especially, even more so, we were living near Tora Bora, where Osama bin Laden was based. It's about an hour or two drive from our district. And that place was bombed intensively compared to the rest of the part of the country. And even now, actually, children are born with all sorts of diseases because the US has actually used every bomb except nuclear weapons in that region, in that place, in that mountain. And it's strange that no one really talks about it. It's that, the consequences of the US invasion 15 years on, billions and trillions has been spent, millions, thousands of lives have been lost. It's very unfortunate. But anyhow, things are not black and white. Things are very complex. It's sad that human lives doesn't have some value. So anyway, I'm going to keep it moving because I don't have much time. So things became so bad that I was unable to go to school because the member of my family was killed, unfortunately, by the US forces. The Taliban wanted me and my brother to become fighters, to take revenge. And there's a thing called Pashtunwali. So if you're an Afghan, if you're a Pashtun, which I am, then you follow this code of conduct, which is 3,000 to 5,000 years old. It's an unwritten code of conduct, which says things like hospitality, honor, revenge. There's about 8 things, which is, I don't even know, but you follow it. You know that it's part of Pashtunwali, and it's very important to do so. So as an Afghan boy, as a Pashtun, I was expected to take revenge no matter what. And there's a Pashto saying, if you take revenge after 100 years, you have done it too quickly. So the blood feud goes on forever, and it's unbelievably stupid. It's crazy. But thankfully, because of my mother and her understanding of Islam and her wisdom, she said, violence wasn't the way forward, and she didn't want to bury another of her loved ones. So she sent me and my brother away to safety. And it's for the first time ever I've listened to my mother. And she sent me away that I have not seen her for 10 years. So sometimes I wish I didn't listen to her at least the final time. Of course, she saved my life, but she also lost me. I'm not the same Gulwali that I was 10 years ago. The journey started over in Pakistan. We went to the tribal areas, me and my brother. We were handed over to the people traffickers, smugglers, agents, which I describe in the book as a sophisticated network of somewhat like a business. So there was a CEO on the top, and then they had a country representative, they had a regional representative, they had guides, they had drivers, they had somewhat more efficient than some governments. I mean, I would be going from one place to another, and then people will know about me, and people will be waiting for me. It was very well organized and structured, and it's a criminal, huge billion-pound industry. So the journey started. Me and my brother was initially together, but we were separated. I didn't meet him in the next 14 months, and it was not a thing of honor. It was not a thing. I mean, even to this day, I tell people that I still feel guilty. I shouldn't have left Afghanistan. I should have stayed no matter what the consequences. I should have protected my mother and the siblings, because some Manx were arrested. They were in prison. Our house literally depended on me and my brother. We were the men of the house, and we were leaving. So it was not a honorable thing to do. And it was, again, as I said, I feel guilty. There's a conflict within me even now that whether I have made the right decision or not. But of course, obviously, I just listened to my mother and my grandma and my family. We went away. I didn't know where I was going, how long it will take me, and what will happen. So when me and my brother was separated, my mother told me not to come back, how bad it becomes, but also don't let go of each other's hands. Stay together, stick together. But that was just a kind of a statement, and it never really happened. So I went through Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, into Bulgaria. So traveling illegally without passport, being undocumented, crossing borders, been shot at by the border guards, and been walking on days on end, been kind of staying in chicken coops, staying in places where you keep animals. It was very bad conditions and inhumane situations. Made it to Bulgaria after a few months and fit into the seals of the train, and been asked to jump from a moving train. And then been arrested. I mean, people broke their hands, their arms. I was lucky I didn't break anything, but I seriously hurt myself. Been in hospital for a few days in Sofia, in Bulgaria. And this idea that Bulgaria was the part of the European Union was a bit strange, because it was, if anything, it was kind of, I thought I was somewhere in a third world country where there was no respect for rule of law. There was no respect for human rights. Even though at this time I was a 12-year-old child. Forget being treated as a child. I wasn't even treated as a human. And that's one of the reasons I share my story and write the book, is to hopefully create awareness. And even though it's not really directly linked to Syria, the program of today, which obviously we sympathize and show solidarity with the Syrian conflict, and hopefully my stories are representations of the millions of stories of why people leave and how much hardship and hell they go through, and what happens when they arrive to their destinations. So I was deported back from Bulgaria back to Turkey, spent some time in Istanbul, like hiding basically with the agents and traffickers. Pretty heartless people. They couldn't care less. They saw the refugees me and fellow refugees as a commodity, as just preying on our desperations, which my family had paid a huge amount of money for them to get me to Europe. But then again, one of the things that was bothering me the most was the uncertainty of what was happening next. No one will tell me what was happening next and how and where I will go. After some time in Turkey, I was arrested again in Turkey. So this was like, when you play Monopoly and you keep landing, go back to jail. That was literally my life. And on the other hand, the journey was back and forth. So I was arrested in Turkey, imprisoned in an adult prison for 3 weeks in Istanbul, sent back to Iran, where I had to make the same journey again. Actually, I ran away from a police prison bus, which I knew there were 95% chances of me being shot at by the police. But then I could not go back home, because if I went back home, my mother will not accept that my brother is alive. She will think my brother is dead and I'm lying to her. I was not worried about the consequences of what will happen to me, or whether I'll be dead or alive, or whether the Taliban will take me, or whether the US forces will come and want me to become an informant with them. So I was not really thinking about myself, but I was thinking about my brother and my family. So I was actively looking and seeking to find my brother. Made the journey again, same journey, same hardship, walking during the nights and traveling during the day in trucks. And then finally made it to Greece, and I back up a boat which was designed for about 20 people. There were 120 of us in it. We went to a place called Izmir, and a port town of Turkey. For 3 nights, the boat did not arrive. Our food and water, everything ran out. And the final day, the agents came back. They were Turkish Kurds. They came back with one tomato, half of Turkish bread, and a glass of water for those human beings lying over there. We wanted to give ourselves into the police, into the authorities, but we knew how bad the prison conditions were, because we were willing to kind of starve, but then being thirsty for 3 days and 3 nights were really hard because everything ran out. We even tried to drink water from the sea. That made the situation worse. And even when I was asked to come and speak here, and I was thinking, I will be fasting and I have an event in Manchester, what is going to happen? Then I just reminded myself, there was a time I stayed hungry for weeks, for days, and thirsty. And here I was, Ramadan is about sacrificing and it's about understanding those who are less fortunate than me. So I thought, this is nothing. I can actually come and speak. Yes, it would be a bit hard, but I will hopefully manage. So here I was, without water and drinks. We were very grateful we had this little food and water. And then the third day the boat came. We were taken in a small boat to a bigger boat, which was not really big. It was, a leisure boat designed for 20 people. And as I said, there was 120 of us in it. It was very heavy. The captain was shouting. There was already a fight. I managed to stay on. And then after they told us we will be in Greece within a few hours, it took us 48 to 50 hours before we were somewhere near Athens, and the boat broke down. So this was the first time for me to see the sea. And this was the first time I was very frightened. I was very scared. The waves was crazy. And I saw death on many occasions. But this time, at this point, I knew for sure, I knew certainly I was going to die. Because the boat broke down. The water was coming. We were there for quite a few hours. If the police had not arrived within minutes, our boat was going to capsize and just sunk. And one of the things that was keeping me going on this journey was hope and faith. Being a strong believer. And I was having this argument with God and saying, I don't mind dying. I will die one day. But not now, not here, and not like this. And when I see the stories of people drowning, just a few weeks ago, over 1,000 people were killed in the Mediterranean coming from Egypt and Libya to Italy. It resonates, it brings back memories. It keeps me awake at night. And greatly bothers me that last year over 4,000 people were killed in the Mediterranean from Turkey to Greece. And for me, it's not statistics, it's not numbers, it's human lives. The story that we saw about the Hamza, the lady in Germany, behind every person, there are families, there are relatives, and there are loved ones. So for me, I said to myself, if I drown in the Mediterranean, I wasn't bothered. But the concern I had was, my mother will hope that I will return home one day, but I will never return. When death happens, you die, you have a grave, your families, yes, they will grieve, they will be sad, but at least they know you are dead and your grave is there. they can visit you. But in the hardest part for a mother would be is not knowing whether her son is dead or alive, and to live the rest of her life in hope that he will return, and he will never return. So that was my biggest concern and doubts in my head, and I was like, this can't happen. And then somehow I survived. I managed to make it to Greece. The police came and arrested us, saved us, rescued us. And then after some time, there were people waiting for us, bring us food and water, which I saw the kindness and humanity of people, which was beautiful, because on this journey I saw the brutality and inhumanity of man to man, but also saw kindness, just a smiling person smiling at me at the street of Paris or Athens or Rome was priceless, because there are little things that we take for granted were becoming very valuable. So I made it to Greece. I was arrested again, same old story, and then taken to a prison. There was 11 of us, the children, the younger ones, the under 16s. And then after 15 days, I fasted in prison. So this was like about 2007. And then we were told that we need to leave Greece within a month. Otherwise, we will face deportation back to Afghanistan or Turkey. But then after some time, I found out that we were being in prison for 3 months, because we entered the country illegally and we were children. So the system did not make sense. It was very illogical. And now when I see this Turkey and EU deal, I'm like, Greece and Turkey is not really a place to be a refugee. It really isn't, because they can't handle it. They have too many, and also they don't have the same standards or they don't get any extra support and help which they need. So I somehow managed to escape from a camp, and then this was the first time I heard about my brother, that he was heading for England. The story is a beautiful story. It's in the book, and which you'll hopefully read. And then I made it to Italy on a top of a lorry engine, which was very hot and risky and scary. I was holding on to the thing. If I had let it go my hands, I would be underneath the tires in Wales. But then I made it to Italy. I got the driver's attention, threw a rock in my bag, and he was shocked. He was trying to tell me that he has seen all sorts of people hiding in different places, but he had never seen anybody hiding on the top of the engine. So, and he was just like on the motorway telling people, look at this guy. And then the police arrived. The Italian police was the only place I was treated kindly and with humanity. I was taken to a shop to get me. I remember even 10 years ago, they got me some milk, juice, and some biscuits and a croissants, because I was very hungry. And then taken to a children's home. I was there for about 15 days. This was the first time I ever slept on my own in a room. This was the first time I had to get shower every morning. I thought that was waste of water. I don't seriously. My book has been published in Italiano. I would love to go back and thank those people, the children's home people who looked after me. I remember their names, but I forgot the name that I was in. I forgot the town's name that I was in, which is strange. I ran away. I jumped from the 15th floor after 15 days. I just had enough of that place, because I needed to get to Rome. I needed to get to England to find my brother. And then the journey continued. When I made it to Rome, I regretted it, because I had a beautiful place staying. People were sleeping in cotton balls. People were sleeping in the park. And then I found a brother's friend, and then somehow managed to, things was coming together through faith and fate. Things was happening. All the puzzles would just come together somehow. I made it to France on the train. I spent the coldest night in Paris. I was trying to stay in a telephone box outside a park, Gare de l'Ex station near there somewhere. And then the police kicked me out. So I stayed in the park. Now I went back 9 years later, went back to Paris. The telephone box is not there, but the spot is still there. And the welcome I had, I recently went back to 2 years ago, I went to Strasbourg to represent the UK at an international conference as a youth representative. And I've been to Calais about 6 times in the last year or so. And I've been to France in other events and conferences. And the welcome I had was completely astonishing. And so I made it to Calais. I heard so much about Calais and how miserable it was. Actually, it was more miserable than what I thought. I spent a month in Calais in the jungle. That month literally felt like 3 months. Every day I tried. The police will humiliate us, wake us up in the morning. We will run after lorries for 6 hours every night. And it was unbearable. I couldn't believe this place exists even now. Between world most prosperous capitals, London and Paris, is 2 hours each direction. And those human beings live in the most inhuman condition imaginable. I'm sure some of you might have been there and seen it. So it's crazy. And after 9 years, when I was able to go back, one of the reasons I was able to leave that place was because of this piece of paper, which somebody mentioned about passport. Because of this piece of paper. And everything comes down to what nationality you hold, what passport you hold, where you were born. And it shouldn't be like this. For example, being a British citizen, your passport enables you, well, until recently, enables you to go to 175 countries without visa. And then being an Afghan, my passport enables me to go to 24 countries. that I haven't even heard the name of. And there's a huge injustice in the global governing system, which needs resolving. And it's crazy how we have this referendum and how people are kind of just thinking inward. People are not realizing this is a moral duty. I think one of the reasons people voted, I don't want to become too political, voted is because of refugees, because of people like myself. I think those people being fed by right-wing propaganda, right-wing media, and politicians. People had no problem with Europe before. The reason people have problem with Europe is because of refugees. And I wish it wasn't like this. I wish people saw refugees as an investment, as an opportunity. Like for me, so anyway, I finally made it to England after my 100th attempt on the back of a refrigerator lorry, which was very risky, because if the driver had put on the refrigerator, we would have been killed in the last leg of our journey. Actually, my plan was to keep it short, but I just went on for, I'm gonna finish it soon. Because you can read the book, it's just there. It's 380 pages, so it's 32 chapters. I'm trying to do it in 10 minutes. So married in England, I was relieved, I was pleased after so much hardship. It was 12 months on the journey, all alone at the age of 12. Yes, I had people to support me and help me along the way, who pushed me, who I will never forget. I will always be in debt of gratitude. I tell people I smell freedom, but I don't know how freedom smells. And here I was again, the same old story. I was arrested and put into custody for 24 hours before taken into the immigration. So being on the journey was one thing, but being here the first couple of weeks and months was as hard as the journey, if not more. So on the journey, I was in the hands of traffickers and smugglers and agents. Here I was in the hands of bureaucrats, the Home Office officials, social services, although they wanted to help me. But things became so bad that I thought there was no point to life. I just wanted to kill myself. Twice I tried, and it's hard for an Afghan to be standing here to be telling you this, because being an Afghan is a very shameful thing to do, to say, you want to end your life. It's not an honorable thing to say or do. But I was, writing the book, I was persuaded by my writer, a wonderful lady, Nadine, to say, no, this was an important story, because the system was so cold and unwelcoming. I felt worthless. I felt there was no point. No one would believe my age. No one would believe my nationality, the Home Office, the social services. No one would believe the people who was in authority would not believe my story. So I thought there was no point to anything if I'm not being believed. And again, there's nothing worse than not being believed. So I just wanted to end with the whole situation and just live this world. But thankfully, I again survived, been in a hospital for a few months or weeks, and here I am to be able to speak to you. So I challenged the status quo. I challenged them over my age. There are thousands of people in the UK now who have age disputes. And I'm not saying you should accept everyone, whatever they say. Of course you should investigate. Of course you should look into it. People doesn't have passport and birth certificate to prove it. But by making someone who is 13, making them 16 and a half, you destroy their future. You destroy their life. And now I realize why they were doing this is because if they make you over 16, they don't have to provide you a school. They don't have to provide you a foster family. They don't have to really care about the rights of a child. So anyhow, after I found my brother, found my uncle who was also here, in Bolton in Manchester, it took me 2 years to finally challenge social services over my age. It took me 5 years to get a refugee status. I went through so much struggle and so much hardship. The UK was the beginning of an end. The journey did not end it here. And even now, life is a struggle. Just yesterday, actually, I was walking in town in Bolton. I felt unsafe. I felt somewhat uneasy about the people around me for the first time in these 10 years. I mean, I have experienced racism and discrimination, and it's very sad and unfortunate that somehow discrimination and racism are becoming institutionalized because of I don't know, somehow it gives legitimacy. So for the last, I will finish soon, okay. For the last, I went to school. I managed to get to school. I started in year 10, managed to get 8 to 10 GCSEs, all A to Cs, despite not speaking any English. I went to college, did my A-levels. I'm just finally graduating from the University of Manchester. And since then, I've been doing everything I can to give back to society. I'm so grateful, and I'm so, again, in debt of gratitude to the British public, to the government, even though they made my life hell, but still for making me allowed to stay here and for enabling me to have those opportunities. And hopefully I want to go back one day back to Afghanistan to take all these opportunities with me. I mean, all these experiences in education to ensure that mothers will not send their children away to risk their lives, to die in the Mediterranean for safety. But there are just to conclude, there are a few things I'm very proud of. Just yesterday, on Friday, I was at the University of Manchester, and I was one of the students from Faculty of Humanities to receive a Distinguished Achievements Award of Student of the Year. Things like that makes me really proud and makes me really humble that just 5 years ago, as a shepherd, I made it to the University of Manchester. The University of Manchester is one of my biggest achievements. In 2012, I was able to carry the Olympic torch and went to the UN. I spoke at the UN. I have chances, writing the book, touring the world. All these things I never imagined will happen, but it has happened because I had people around me who supported me, who believed in me, who encouraged me, and who empowered me to go on and achieve. And I'm just going to leave you with a thought that one day our children, our grandchildren will ask us, this refugee crisis in 2016, what did you do about it? Thank you very much.